Joining me now is Laurie Williams. She's a political scientist at Calgary's Mount Royal University and a longtime observer of Alberta politics. Professor Williams, thanks for joining us.
Oh, it's my great pleasure.
Now, Danielle Smith, in her victory speech, she said that no longer will Ottawa or anyone else dictate what Albertans can put in their bodies or how Albertans can deal with their resources, etc., etc. She continued that messaging, and she promised to make her controversial Alberta Sovereignty Act one of the first orders of business. That's the act that will supposedly allow Alberta to basically ignore federal legislation if the government feels it's not in the province's interest. Tell us where this is all going. I mean, a lot of the other leadership candidates were against the Sovereignty Act. Where do you see it going?
Well, it raises a few questions. So as things stand right now, certainly the folks that voted Danielle Smith into office are supportive of being much tougher on Ottawa than currently they are. And a lot of Albertans agree with some of those things, particularly around managing resources and our economy, and just sort of being appreciated as a contributor to the country. But Danielle Smith is far afield of mainstream Albertans. There isn't broad support. In fact, there's quite a bit of opposition to the Alberta Sovereignty Act, a lot of questions about what it's going to contain. And Danielle Smith is going to have to convince first her caucus and then Albertans in general that this is actually a winning strategy. I mean, it remains to be seen whether this is going to have to be moderated or watered down to get caucus support or in light of the next provincial election, and whether that's going to alienate the folks that voted for her yesterday.
Well, that sets up the next question. That was about party unity. We know that Ms. Smith has held her first caucus meeting this morning. She's also supposedly sent a letter out to each and every MLA, Conservative MLA, UPC MLA. She's saying she wants to sit down for at least half an hour with each of them and chat with them. She's saying that politics is a blood sport, and she's inviting everyone to bury the hatchet now and to come together. How much of a challenge does she have?
It's a very significant challenge, because remember, these are two parties, the Wildrose Party and the Progressive Conservative Party, brought together by Jason Kenney in order to win an election and defeat the NDP. That was enough for a time to bring them together. But the people that were in these parties fought one another across the legislature. They profoundly disagree with one another on a lot of issues, whether it be social conservatism versus libertarianism, rural versus urban, progressive versus further to the right. I mean, there are all kinds of divisions between and amongst them. And we saw those divisions in the leadership race. And you just alluded to the fact that 5 out of the 7 candidates who are members of the party and in the legislature, all of them currently, 5 of them have opposed the Sovereignty Act and have pledged not to support it as described by Danielle Smith. She's going to have to somehow get sign off on the bureaucrats to put the wording together, which could be another barrier to doing this. And so to me, I mean, already hearing stories about people that are wondering whether Danielle Smith is the person that they want to lead them into the next election. And now she's probably going to have a honeymoon phase for a certain period of time and an opportunity to try to win over party members and more broadly Albertans. But for the party members, the minute those polls start to dip down, and it looks like they might have a tough time in the next election, I think the knives are going to come out again. Well,
let's look at that. You just set it up perfectly, and that is the next election is as early as next spring. A few months ago, the polls were showing that Rachel Notley and her NDP were comfortably ahead of the UPC, which was doing very badly. We've seen a lot of different polls over the last few weeks and months, though, saying a lot of different things. Some people saying that they're now neck and neck. Others saying, though, that a lot of ordinary Albertans really have a problem with Danielle Smith as leader of the UPC. What do you make of the polls?
Well, there are polls indicating that a majority of Albertans, a significant majority of Albertans, think that Danielle Smith will be terrible for the province. Of course, she's going to have to convince them otherwise, and has a bit of time and a lot of money to do that. There are also polls that indicate that, taking aside raw numbers, the entire province as a single constituency, as we saw last night in the leadership vote, she has to win enough seats in key battlegrounds around the province, and polls are showing that she will not be able to win Calgary. She might have troubles in Red Deer, Lethbridge, Banff, Airdrie, and even Fort McMurray. And if that's the case, then it's hard to see a path to a majority government. So just as she's got to bring around the lukewarm or even skeptical members of her own caucus and party, she also has to bring around the mainstream Albertans that may once have been conservatives and are wondering if that's really where they've got a home now.
Okay, well, we no doubt will speak again as we watch this unfolding story, as well as the relations with Ottawa. Thank you very much for taking the time.
Oh, thank you.